Hello and welcome to Getting to the Root Cause with Dr. Fong. I have to apologize because I have been away for the last couple of weeks, and that's because I have been taking a deep dive into the COVID-19 research so that I can bring you the information that I am delivering in this podcast today. I also want to empower you to learn how to boost your immune system to protect yourself from COVID-19 and any other viral infection that's going around right now, like the common cold and the flu. So I have created a guide called Truly Immune, and I have made this guide free to anybody who wants access to it. And you can find that information at trulyimmune.com. Now, what are the symptoms of COVID-19? The most common symptoms are fever, a dry cough, and fatigue. And then sputum production and mild pneumonia may also be part of the moderate symptoms that you'll see with COVID-19. Elderly patients and those with immunocompromised systems or with those with lung and cardiovascular disease may develop more serious symptoms such as severe pneumonia, acute respiratory distress syndrome, sepsis, septic shock, and even death. And so this is the population that we really need to protect. Before we move further, I think it's important to understand how our immune system works and how viruses will go into our system and wreak havoc. So a virus is a microbe that attaches to a cell, takes over that cell, and then copies itself. And when it does so, we call that a virally infected cell. Once it copies itself, it then will try to infect the neighboring healthy cells. And that's how the progression of a viral infection works. What's interesting is that a virus cannot travel on its own, so it must take a ride on a respiratory droplet. And what that means is that it will need to come out through a cough or a sneeze, or even if you're just talking to someone. Now, what I usually say is that if you can smell someone's lunch, then you are likely inhaling that person's respiratory droplets. And that's why the CDC is recommending a 6-foot distance between individuals. These respiratory droplets can enter through your mouth, your nose, or your eyes. And so that's why it's very important to cover yourself if possible. The good thing is that coronaviruses are pretty easy to kill with a disinfectant because they have a very delicate envelope that gets broken by soap or other disinfectants. So that is why when you get home, you want to make sure to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds, and then you want to disinfect your surfaces. If you're out at the store, the smooth, non-porous surfaces really allow the virus to stay alive for longer. Porous materials such as money, pet fur, and clothes are not as good at transmitting the virus because of the porous nature of the material. The virus will get absorbed into the material and it will trap that virus. So now let's talk a little bit about the immune system. If a virus can hitch a ride on a respiratory droplet and you are inhaling the respiratory droplet through your nose or your mouth, or maybe getting exposure through your eyes, what then happens in your body to protect yourself from this virus? Well, you have 3 layers of your immune system. And the first layer is really your physical barrier, and that starts off at your skin. The great thing about your skin is it has a low pH, and there are enzymes on your skin as well that really will kill a bacteria or a virus upon contact. Also, you have mucus secretions and enzymes in your digestive tract that will also kill these viruses or bacteria or parasites or any microbes that come into your system. Your second layer of defense is called your innate immune system, and this part of your immune system activates very quickly. So this is really important in the first few hours of exposure to a new microbe. And what the innate immune system, they're really non-specific cells and chemicals that are released. And some of those cells almost act like a little Pac-Man eating the microbes that are entering the system. So you have cells called macrophages that literally eat the microbes like viruses. And you also have natural killer cells that will kill the virally infected cells. The third layer of your immune system is called the adaptive immune system. And this is the more specific defense system that your body has that really takes time to settle in. It takes about 4 to 7 days for your adaptive immune system to really start working. And this includes very specific cells called T cells, B cells, also antibodies and cytokines are part of the adaptive immune response. The great thing about your adaptive immune response is that there's memory there. So let's say you get infected right now and then you get better. If you are exposed to that same pathogen, a year later, you should have immunity to that pathogen or that microbe because you have developed antibodies that have memory. And this is the same science that's used in vaccinations. One of the reasons that COVID-19 has become such a scare is because the incubation period of this virus is quite long. So let's say you get exposed to the virus today, it's possible that you won't show symptoms for up to 14 days after exposure. And that's quite a long time when we compare that with the common cold, where the incubation time is about 2 to 3 days, and the flu, where the incubation period is only 1 to 4 days. So it's quite long where a patient can actually have this virus in his or her system and possibly be contagious, but also be asymptomatic or not showing symptoms. The other problem is how long are we seeing that these patients can be contagious? Well, with COVID-19, we're seeing that there's a possibility that someone can be contagious up to 37 days after exposure, with a median time of about 20 days after exposure. And again, when we compare the flu, you're typically only contagious for about 5 to 7 days after you show symptoms. And for the common cold, it could be a little bit longer, about 14 days after exposure. But COVID-19 is showing these larger numbers of times where you're possibly asymptomatic and you're still contagious. And so that's the reason for the scare, and that's the reason for everyone needing to stay at home, because you could actually be carrying the virus, transmitting it to other individuals, and we're most worried about that high-risk group of the elderly population and those who are immunocompromised. At my practice, we are offering the antibody test, which is a screening test that checks for IgGs and IgMs to COVID-19. Now, the first antibody that your body creates is IgM, and that is usually within the first 2 weeks of exposure. And then a little bit later, your body will create the other type of antibody called IgG. Now, this is a screening test that will tell us if you have been exposed to COVID-19 and if you have immunity as well too. These are qualitative tests. They are not quantitative tests, so they're not telling us the amount of antibody you have, which typically right when you're exposed, you're going to have the highest level of those antibodies about 4 to 5 days after exposure. And then those levels will drop down over time, especially those IgMs. So if you decide to get this test at my office or somewhere else, then this test is really great to let us know if you've been exposed and if your immune system will have a defense mounted if you get exposed again. If you currently have positive IgGs and IgMs, then it means that you were recently infected within the last couple of weeks. If you have negative IgMs and positive IgGs, it's a possibility you were infected a while ago and those IgMs have now come down. And it usually takes a couple of months, about 3 to 4 months, for those IgM levels to drop down. So why is this testing important? This testing can be very important because it can let you know if you do have possible immunity to COVID-19. But I should note that there are potentially false negatives and false positives. What I would like to talk about today is all the naturopathic modalities that we can use to possibly protect ourselves from COVID-19. And if we get exposed, how can we boost our immune function to really allow that immune function to work optimally to kill that virus? We are going to be talking about diet and supplements and herbs and homeopathy, everything that you can do right now to protect yourself and boost your immune function just in case you do get exposed to COVID-19. In talking about how to boost your immune system, I want to start with food. And the reason I want to start with food is because it's something we do at least 3 times a day, and we can be making better choices with our food. I've created this guide called Immune Boosting Foods, and I definitely want you to take a look at it. I want you to be eating the rainbow right now. So, get those colorful, rich foods into your diet because all these colorful foods have the nutrients that we need. For example, Your orange foods contain beta-carotene, which is pro-vitamin A, and vitamin A is one of my favorite vitamins, which we also call the anti-infective vitamin. Lycopene is found in your red foods like tomato, guava, watermelon. Vitamin C is very rich in all your citrus fruits, your lemon, your lime, your orange, your grapefruit, and even Brussels sprouts and spinach. There are beta-glucans, which we'll talk about in a minute, that are found in mushrooms. So, definitely take a look at my immune boosting foods guide, because there are so many foods that we can be using now to really boost our immune function. And I'd like to go into the science of some of the vitamins and constituents that we find in our foods that help to boost our immune system. So the first one, as I said, my favorite antiviral, anti-infective vitamin is vitamin A. Vitamin A has been shown to support all 3 layers of our immune system, strengthening the membranes and the mucosal surfaces, supporting the antibody response, and altering those adaptive immune cells called T cells and B cells. And a lot of the research that we have on vitamin A is supporting how increased doses of vitamin A can really lower the complications of the measles in children. A review of 8 randomized controlled trials of treatment with vitamin A for children with measles found that 200,000 IUs of vitamin A on 2 consecutive days reduced mortality from measles in children younger than 2 and mortality due to pneumonia in children. And I think this is quite significant when we're talking about COVID-19, because one of the complications of COVID-19 are the pneumonia symptoms that people are having. What we believe with the vitamin A is that vitamin A inhibits the measles replication by turning on elements of the innate immune response. Remember, that's the non-specific immune response in healthy cells. And what that does is that protects those healthy cells from getting infected by the virus. And so that really slows and stops the replication process by the measles virus. I do believe that we can use this same science for COVID-19 because I have used vitamin A in supporting my patients who have the flu or the common cold or other viral illnesses that come into my practice. As you're going to see in the Truly Immune Guide, I do have a dosing chart there that's going to tell you how to dose vitamin A preventively and then how to dose it in an acute situation. What you're going to see is I'm suggesting very high doses of the vitamin A in an acute situation in the first couple of days of an illness. Now, one of the things we worry about is toxicity with vitamin A. It is a fat-soluble vitamin. So if you are pregnant, you definitely do not want to be taking high doses of vitamin A. But if you are not pregnant, if you are not taking other sources of vitamin A or retin-A or any type of retinol supplement or medication, then you should be okay to increase your vitamin A levels in the first part of an acute illness. Now, with all the dosing on my dosing charts, I want to make sure that you understand this is not a replacement for medical advice. You do want to consult with your physician or a naturopathic physician if you have one to make sure that the doses are right for you. As I mentioned before, the way you're going to get vitamin A in your diet is mainly through beta-carotene, which is all of your orange fruits and vegetables. So make sure that your daily diet is rich in all of those orange foods like oranges and carrots and cantaloupe. All of those are really high in your beta-carotene. Vitamin A itself is really not found in food sources. So where you'll get vitamin A if you want to supplement with it is cod liver oil. That's where you'll find a high amount of vitamin A. The next vitamin that I really love for boosting the immune system is vitamin D, and I call vitamin D flu's kryptonite. The reason I call it that is because we have seen that vitamin D assists in the production of something called cathelicidin, which is an antimicrobial peptide secreted by white blood cells in the lungs. Those antimicrobial peptides really act like antivirals or antibacterials that actually kill viruses and kill any microbes like bacteria. There have been studies that show that optimal levels of vitamin D really decrease the rates of the flu. There was a study that showed that children who took 1,200 IUs daily of vitamin D had decreased rates of the flu by 42%. So I do love vitamin D, and I do believe that it can really be a support mechanism during this time to protect us and increase our immune system if we are exposed to COVID-19 as well too. In terms of dosing for vitamin D in a preventive sense, you want to make sure that your serum levels are between 45 and 60. So you can get those checked and make sure you get those levels up. The best way to get our vitamin D levels up is through sun exposure. So what I would like you to do here is, if you can, I know we're all cooped up in our homes right now, but if you can, I want you to get out there in the sun for about 15 minutes daily, and you want to expose your face, your arms, and your legs if possible. 15 minutes of exposure to face, arms, and legs will get you the amount of vitamin D you need to boost your immune system during this time. If you're unable to do that, then what you can do is supplement. And if you are going to supplement, you want to make sure to supplement with vitamin D3, and you want to make sure to pair that with vitamin K2. And the reason you're going to pair that with K2 is because vitamin D3 pulls calcium out of your bones, and vitamin K2 puts the calcium back into your bones. So by pairing D3 with K2, you can protect yourself from kidney stones and osteoporosis and osteopenia. Now, if you do get sick with the common cold, the flu, or COVID-19, you can also take increased doses of vitamin D. And again, this is on the dosage chart that's at trulyimmune.com. And what these increased doses will do in the first 1 to 3 days of your illness is really boost those cathelicidin levels and boost other immune system cells and chemicals such as defensins and macrophages, etc. And those are really important in this battle against COVID-19. Zinc is a mineral that can be quite boosting for the immune system, as it works synergistically with vitamin A to activate something called thymic factor. And that will really help your T cell production, which is in your third level of your immune response. Studies have shown that zinc is helpful in reducing the risk of pneumonia, the common cold, the incidence of respiratory tract infections, specifically in the elderly and children. So I do think zinc supplementation can be quite important during this time. Lysine is an essential amino acid that cannot be made in our bodies, and we have to get it through diet. And why lysine is important is because it interferes with the absorption of another amino acid called arginine. And arginine is really essential for the replication of viruses and the progression of viral infections. So you want to eat a diet also rich in lysine. Now, lysine, zinc, and B vitamins can be found in things like meat and poultry, fish, legumes, etc. So make sure to check out my immune boosting foods guide so that you can see where you can get all of these nutrients in your diet. So all of these vitamins are so important in terms of boosting our immune function, and then boosting our immune function even more if we are exposed to a viral pathogen. As you can see, these vitamins and minerals are super important in boosting your immune system. So first off, make sure to get them in your diet. And if you can't, then you can supplement. And the best way to get these, if you're just trying to supplement in a preventive sense, is to just take a really good multivitamin. And you'll see on trulyimmune.com, I do have two really great choices for multivitamin. In a capsule form, I have one called Truly Transform Recharge. I also have a liquid multivitamin there that you can get in the online dispensary called Liquid Vitamin Mineral Rush. And I do love that one because it's made from all organic fruits and vegetables. The next thing I'd like to talk about are herbs. Herbs can be so powerful in our battle against viral infections, and there's so much research to support the immune boosting properties of herbs. The first one I'd like to talk about is echinacea, and I think most of us have heard of echinacea. Echinacea is one of our herbs that has been really widely researched. There have been over 300 scientific studies supporting the efficacy and safety of echinacea. The great thing about echinacea is it's an herb that you can use at the onset of a viral illness. And that's because echinacea has been shown to compete with pathogens by blocking the viral receptors on the cell surfaces. So the echinacea can really stop those viruses from infecting the cells. And that's why echinacea is so important to take at the onset of an illness, and really more than using echinacea as a preventive mechanism for boosting the immune function, echinacea is really great at the onset of the illness. And what you'll see in my guide is that I'm suggesting to take a number of these vitamins and minerals and herbs at the onset of your illness every hour for the first 6 hours. So you're really helping out that innate immune system to do its job correctly. The next herb that I really love is called elderberry, and many of you might see it at the store as sambucus. Elderberry contains something called anthocyanins, and those are what make the elderberry a purple color. The interesting thing to note is that anthocyanins are also found in other berries such as blueberries, strawberries, etc. So you want to make sure that your diet is rich in berries right now. You'll get a lot of anthocyanins that way. And the anthocyanins inhibit the early stages of infection by blocking key viral proteins that play an important role in viral attachment and the entry into the host cells. So elderberry is really an important one that's antiviral, and I like to use this herb in a preventive way. Elderberry is safe to take the whole entire year. Another herb that I really like is called andrographis. Andrographis has something called andrographolide, which is a constituent that's anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, antiviral, anti-diabetic. It has so many great properties. Astragalus is another great herb that has been used traditionally in Chinese medicine for a long time, and it's really ideal for someone who's immunocompromised. And the reason for that is it's not only immune boosting, but it also helps to protect the liver from damage and really intensifies phagocytosis, or what we were talking about earlier, the ingestion of microbes as they're coming into the system. And lastly, I'd like to talk about medicinal mushrooms. Medicinal mushrooms have a constituent called beta-glucans, which have important immunomodulating activities. For example, shiitake mushrooms have beta-glucans that increase T cell function and decrease inflammatory proteins. Maitake mushrooms contain something called diffraction that really activate various parts of the immune function, including macrophages, natural killer cells. So it's important to eat these in your diet, the shiitake and maitake mushrooms. And again, I've also put these in some of my formulations that I've created for Truly Immune. So again, at trulyimmune.com, I have released these guides that contain the dosing information for all of the vitamins, herbs, and minerals that I have talked about in the podcast today. And what you'll see is that I've given you the doses for all of these vitamins, minerals, and herbs separately, which if you would like to, you can buy all of those separately. To make it easier for you, I have created formulations that contain all of these vitamins, minerals, and herbs. And I do have 2 formulations. One is called Truly Immune Daily, and that's in a pill or a liquid form if you'd like to give it to your kids. And that one is a herbal formulation that contains elderberry, astragalus, beta-glucans from the medicinal mushrooms. And it's called Truly Immune Daily because it's a great preventive support supplement that you can take every day during this time when we're worried about getting infected with COVID-19. I do also have another supplement called Truly Immune Rescue, and that one contains the higher levels of the vitamin A. It contains the other vitamins like B vitamins and zinc and lysine, and all of those herbs like echinacea, elderberry, astragalus, and andrographis that you can take at the onset of your illness. And what you're going to see is for adults who are not pregnant, I have suggested 2 capsules every hour for the first 6 hours. And the reason I have suggested that is because in that first initial part of the defense system that your body's going to put on is, again, remember the innate immune system. We really want to support all of your body's functions there. And so by giving your system high doses of vitamin A, the echinacea, the elderberry, etc., we're really boosting that immune function at the onset of the exposure to the virus. And what we're trying to do is stop the viral replication, stop the viruses from entering those healthy cells and infecting them, and really stopping that viral infection before it can progress forward. So as soon as you get that itchy throat feeling or those first signs of illness, you want to make sure to take these vitamins, herbs, and minerals right at the onset. When I do this, when my patients do this, we tend to have a much lower incidence of severe symptoms and also decreasing the duration of the illness too. So if I get that scratchy throat feeling or the sore throat feeling, I will do this every hour for the first 6 hours, and by the next day, I'm typically better. So I typically do not get sick, especially if I have access to these herbs, the immune boosting foods. And then in a minute, we're going to talk about homeopathy and other at-home treatments that you can use. Now, I have designed the dosing chart to be for non-pregnant adults. If you do have children, the children can also take these vitamins, herbs, and minerals too, but the dosing is going to be different. I would suggest that you work with myself or a naturopathic physician to figure out the right doses for your child. In general, we tend to say that you can give about half the dose for children, but I can't make any suggestions here today because all children are going to be, different weights and have different things that we need to consider in terms of the dosing. The next thing that I have found in my practice to work so successfully in terms of treating a viral illness is homeopathy. And homeopathy is a type of medicine that was developed by an MD named Samuel Hahnemann about 200 years ago. And what these are they are very dilute remedies that are typically made from herbs. And what they do is they stimulate the immune function, and you choose those remedies based on the symptoms. So I do have a number of remedies that I have chosen specifically for what we're dealing with right now with COVID-19. And you'll see that I have a guide called Homeopathy in the Truly Immune Guides. And what you're going to see is that I have split up the remedies into 3 different sections. You have remedies for fevers and flu-like symptoms, for coughs and colds, and for pneumonia and bronchitis symptoms. And the reason I've added the pneumonia and bronchitis symptoms is because one of the main symptoms that we are seeing in the more severe cases is the sputum production, the chest pain upon coughing, and those, again, bronchitis and pneumonia-like symptoms. Now, if you're unfamiliar with homeopathy, my suggestion is to do a combination remedy, and you can pick one up at the store, and it's called Cold Calm. And this one is really great because you can find it at CVS, Walgreens, and literally almost any pharmacy right now. What it contains is all of the potential remedies that you would use for symptoms like sneezing, runny nose, nasal congestion, and sore throat. So this is one that you can use if you're getting any of those symptoms, and you want to follow the directions on the box, and it is quite effective, especially if you use it at the onset of symptoms. Now, when you dose the homeopathic remedies, you can buy them in a 30C potency, which is a low potency that you can find at your natural grocers or, Whole Foods. What I found with very strong processes like pneumonia, bronchitis, flu, that sometimes higher potencies are needed, and the higher potencies come in these purple containers. You can find these higher potencies for purchase at trulyimmune.com. If you're unfamiliar with using homeopathy, I would suggest that you work with a naturopathic physician in terms of boosting the immune function with higher potencies. And so again, you can reach out to me or your local naturopathic physician to help you there. But what I found with homeopathy is it is a quick way to, if you have a fever, to lower that fever, for example, or if you're having a terrible cough, to lower that cough. The great thing about homeopathy is it boosts the immune function, and you should know that it's working within 3 to 4 doses. If you take 3 to 4 doses of the remedy and you don't have a response, you either have the wrong remedy or you're taking too low of a potency. And what I tend to do with my patients is that the first time they're starting to use homeopathy, I walk them through the process. So if you're having an acute illness, my patients will typically call me. I'll teach them how to use the remedies. And then going forward, they tend to know how to use them in their home, and they can be quite powerful. My daughter has never taken a fever-reducing medication because I use homeopathy. And then secondarily, I use some at-home treatments, which I'd like to go into right now. For the at-home treatments, I love to use hydrotherapy. And there are two specific treatments that I really like. One is called the wet sock treatment, and the other is called the wet sheet treatment. Again, you can find these in the hydrotherapy guide that I've created. The wet sock treatment is used to lower fevers. It's used to address sinus infections, nasal congestion. And what it does is it will pull all that congestion down, and you will put wet, cold socks on your child or yourself, and then you'll cover that with some wool socks. And again, that pulls all that congestion down and also tends to take down the fevers. If that doesn't work and homeopathy doesn't work, I love to use the wet sheet treatment. The wet sheet treatment is where you take off all your clothes, you wet a bed sheet, and you make it really wet and cold. You cover the patient in the wet bed sheet, and then you cover them in a wool or a comforter blanket. And what you'll see is, if my daughter has 103 fever, I cover her with the wet sheet. That fever comes down almost immediately. She falls asleep, and I just let her fall asleep in that sheet. So these are tools that can be so effective in reducing fevers, and you can do them before you ever try any fever-reducing medication. And the last at-home treatment that's really effective is using essential oils. There are two types of ways you can use essential oils when you have an illness. One is to create a chest rub, and the other is to do a steam inhalation. If we remember from when I was a kid, I used to use something called Vicks Vapor Rub. So you can create your own type of Vicks Vapor Rub by taking an oil such as coconut oil, almond oil, or olive oil, about 2 ounces of that oil, and then adding 20 drops of essential oils. Some essential oils you can use are eucalyptus, which is great for general congestion and sinus infections, thyme, which is great for coughs and infections, lavender, which is calming and soothing, hyssop, which is great for coughs and infections, and chamomile, again, great for coughs, colds, and calming that nervous system. And you can rub that on the chest just like you would do a Vicks Vapor Rub, and that will really help open up the passageways so that the patient can breathe more easily, and also it will decrease the coughs. And so really important, I think, if someone is exposed and has COVID-19. For steam inhalation for little kids, you can use those same essential oils that I just listed earlier. And for younger kids, you can just put them in the shower, put a couple of drops of the essential oil on the shower head, and then turn on that shower head. And that will allow those essential oils to go into the steam, and that will be a steam treatment for a young child. For an older child or an adult, you can get a pot of water and boil that pot of water. And once that water has come to a boil, you'll turn that off, and then you'll stick about 10 drops of the essential oil into the pot of water. Then you can put the head over that pot of water and breathe in that steam, and that is also a great way to do the steam inhalation. I hope that this information has been helpful for you today. Again, I created these guides for everyone to have access to, because right now I just think everyone should have access to this information. We should, again, fight fear with knowledge. I think the more you know about how your immune system works and how you can boost your immune function, the more you can feel protected against COVID-19, and you can protect yourself and your family. So you can find all this information again at trulyimmune.com, and you can find the PDFs that are the guides that are available for download. There's an online dispensary where you can buy all of the supplements and homeopathy and essential oils that I've suggested here today. And I've also created the Truly Immune supplement line that combines all of the vitamins, herbs, and minerals that you need to protect yourself during this time. And I just want to end by saying that it's not just about your diet and the supplements you take and the treatments you're prepared for, but you also have to maintain a really healthy lifestyle right now, and that's really important for boosting your immune system. For example, you should be getting some good sleep. Adults should be getting at least 7 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. stay hydrated. Half your weight in ounces of water daily is what you want to do to maintain good hydration. At least that 15 minutes of sunlight daily, as I mentioned earlier, to boost your vitamin D levels. Move your body. I know most of us are cooped up right now, but it's so important to move your body. So if you have stairs, run up and down the stairs, take a walk around the block, do your sit-ups and your push-ups in your living room. Make sure to keep your body moving because as I said in my last podcast with Dr. Guilford, exercise actually increases antioxidants like glutathione. And then lastly, stress is an immune system killer. So whatever you can do to de-stress right now, do it. What's going on is not conducive to being relaxed, but I do want to remind you that stress is an immune system killer. So whatever you can do to de-stress right now is very important. Take that 15 minutes daily for meditation. Do your yoga in your living room and do not worry about things that you cannot have control over right now. Okay? So on that note, I hope that this information has been helpful for you. Again, I'm offering video consults for anybody who needs support right now. Just if you want support for prevention for COVID-19, or if you find yourself with symptoms of COVID-19 and you're worried about it and you want to know how to support yourself, first, check out my guide. Second, if you need more support, definitely reach out to my office and see if you can make an appointment with me. You can also reach me on Instagram at drfong.nd and on Facebook at Diane Angela Fong ND. And again, you can find all of the Truly Immune information, including the guides, the dispensary, the supplements at trulyimmune.com. All right, everyone, stay healthy out there.